excited for this next Q&A. It's very rare that we get the opportunity to speak to somebody who has first-hand experience of the live-action movies, which for the last 18 years have really defined the Transformers. So this is a great privilege for me, and I want you to be extremely loving and welcoming to give a first-time TF-Nation welcome to Sophia Myles! Unless you want to do this standing, it's entirely up to you.
Quite far away.
Should we move closer? Yeah? There we go. That's better. Hey. Oh, now my water's over there. Never mind, it's fine. How are you doing? Are you enjoying yourself?
Yeah, I'm having a lovely time.
Yeah? So this will be your first Transformers convention, I guess?
Yeah, it certainly is. It's my first Transformers convention.
Yeah, okay. And I imagine it's a bit of a whirlwind.
Well, I've gone to a lot of science fiction conventions for other shows, like Doctor Who and various other things. But I have to say, you guys are very keen, polite,
Five-star review would recommend. Yeah. So, before we get started, and obviously we will get on to Age of Extinction and things like that, but we'll park that for the moment. I always like to ask my guests whenever they come up on stage, who is Sophia Myles? If that's a...
That's a question I ask myself every day.
Okay,
Still trying to work out who I
am. Well, where did your passion for the arts start? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't start out to be an actor, did you?
No, not at all. I was painfully shy when I was a child, to the point where I remember saying at nursery school, we had to put on a nativity play, and I said to my mum, the only character I will play is the donkey, so that I can get to wear a mask. I was just, painfully shy as a child.
Did you get the role as the donkey?
I did, yeah.
You did? Oh, fantastic. Okay, that's good. And so when you were younger then, if acting wasn't part of your future, what were you looking to do with your life?
So I was very academic at school, and I got a place to study philosophy at Cambridge, but I missed one of the grades, so I would have had to resat an A-level to go back and get in again. But at that point, I had been discovered when I was 15. I did a play at secondary school, just a regular school, not a drama school or anything like that. And Julian Fellow is the man who writes Downton Abbey. He was in the audience because they were looking for a young girl, because I was 15 at the time, to play Lady Jane Grey in an adaptation of The Prince and the Pauper. They ended up casting me, and when I went to the set, I mean, I never had any ambitions to be famous on the television, anything like that. But what I loved about it was, on a film set, there are so many different people with so many different skills, lots of different ages, and it felt, having been quite bullied at secondary school, and felt for a lot of the time like the outcast, really, I found that when I went to the set, people seemed genuinely happy for me to be there, and I felt like I found the family that I'd always wanted, because my childhood was particularly turbulent, and home never felt quite a safe place, whereas going to these film sets was just like, it was like just a dream, and I loved it. And I remember when I finished the first job, I got home and I cried and cried and cried. It was, it touched me on such a kind of important level, because I think as human beings, all we're really looking for ultimately is connection and longing to feel part of something and welcome. Nobody wants to be the black sheep. And so it gave me a sense of self and a confidence and a more positive way of looking, feeling like I had something to offer that people seem to want to receive in a way that they didn't at school. So yeah, that's how I started.
Wow. I'm fascinated to know then, your shyness that you mentioned, which had you cast as the donkey in the very first production, what steps did you take to try and overcome that shyness to be able to take part in a school play to then lead you to this opportunity?
Well, I think in life, whenever we all face fears, don't we, as humans? We've all got our own, different fears about different things, and I think the best way to overcome any sense of fear is just to go and do it anyway. And then by doing it and realising actually it's not as terrifying and as scary and as awful as I thought it was going to be. And in fact I actually enjoyed it. So it really helped me.
Do you still tour into theatre?
Do I still do the theatre?
Theatre, yes.
No, I haven't. I did one play, which is awful. I do still to this day. I'm much better at it, and you probably wouldn't know to look at me now, but this sort of scenario, if you'd have had me do this 10 years ago, I would have been heart palpitation, behind the scenes, and still that my heart would be going, and it would be very traumatic for me. Whereas now I think, again, having done it a few times and realised like nothing bad happens if you speak to a room of people, as long as you're nice to them, then it's really good,
Yeah. And do you feel that's sort of a symptom of sort of letting people in? I started the conversation with who is Sophia Myles, perhaps one of the most difficult questions you can ever ask anybody. And do you think it is just repetition, overcoming that fear, putting yourself out there, realising that things aren't going to be as bad as you perceive that helps you move forward?
Sure, and also as I got older, I realised that the thoughts that come through my head, because I've always got an inner dialogue, telling me that I'm not good enough, or, it's sort of, what's the word? My default setting is that of self-criticism. Whether that comes from, I don't know, but it doesn't matter, people do address it. But I think I try now, I catch myself, if a negative self-deprecating thought comes into my head, for example, on the way here, I reckon they're all going to hate me and think, why are you here? You're just in the movies. They don't care about the movies, this lot. They're all into the comic books and other stuff. But I can then consciously choose to say, no, look forward to meeting these people. They might teach you something that you don't know. It's not all about you. I think once you can kind of step out of yourself a bit and not be so consumed with self-centered fear, and just taking interest in other people's stories and other people's lives, that's the medicine for me to kind of get me out of my own head, if that makes any sense.
That's beautiful. That really is. I promise I'll be very. So you end up on a film set at a very young age. Now, acting on stage, using the full body, being present all of the time, is a completely different skill to on-screen acting. How did you make that transition? I mean, by the sounds of it, you didn't have any choice.
Well, I hadn't really made the transition.
Okay.
The only play I did was awful.
Also, you were discovered from one play then?
But that was a school play.
Right, okay.
I'm okay in that, but I think because I went straight into film work, and with film work, you get a camera right up to your face, and for me, the way that I'm able to convey emotion to you guys and to show you how I'm feeling, I need you to be able to see my eyes and my reactions in my face. And I find that if I'm put on a stage, trying to articulate, I don't know how to articulate myself through using the physical body, but if you give me, if you just frame my head, I can let you know exactly how I'm feeling. It is definitely something that I'd like to try, for sure. I need to, work with a very acclaimed director who would walk me through it and explain. But also, frankly, I've got a very low boredom threshold, and once my agent's seen it, and my mum, I think, what's I going to do it again?
I like it, yeah. Moving on to the next thing, the next challenge, which you would do in film work as opposed to night after night after night in the theatre. So you start off at a very young age, working on movies. When did you decide that this was a path that you wanted to pursue, you know, as a career for the rest of your life?
Well, I got the bug after that first job. I was like, right, well, how do you do more of this? And so I spoke to a lot of the other actors on the job and said, how does it work? And they said, well, we've got agents. And so I then, you know, decided who did I think were the nicest and best actors in the show, and then I found out who their agents were, and I called, it was about 3 of them. 2 of them said no, 1 of them said yes, and yeah.
And off to the races we go.
Kind of, yeah, and I was sort of quite, I don't know, when you're younger, you've got so much more bravery or fear. I was, you know, asked to go out to Los Angeles when I was 20, and I had about £200 in my pocket. But I was so young and so determined because I knew this is what I wanted. I knew it was the job that really set my soul on fire. And I don't even think of it as a job, it's my passion. And so, you know, I went out there completely fearless. I'm just determined to crack Hollywood because I thought, you know, again, you don't realise how difficult it is when you're younger. So I went out there and organised some meetings with agents and miraculously got myself American representation. And then the first job I went up for, or auditioned in Hollywood, was a film called Underworld. Yay! And I got the job. That then happened, and then it just, the momentum just carried on, you know, and yeah, it's...
I always ask this to actors, especially on-screen actors. Did you enjoy playing make-believe as a child? Because I imagine when you get a script as an actor, your idea is, I'm playing a vampire in this vampire movie, or I'm playing Lady Penelope. And I just wonder whether or not that's, you know, built into your character, that you just enjoy playing.
No, I wasn't one to hit the dressing up box. My brother was more like that. Oliver was made up of three year younger brother, and he would be out in the garden dressed in combat material and, you know, building himself trenches, and he was completely absorbed in his games. I wasn't so much like that, but I think I knew, I suppose, you know, in your head, I don't know, we all do this, but you always imagine, gosh, I wonder what it would feel like to be, I don't know, a international spy. You know, I wonder what those people's lives are like. And so just the idea of trying to, you know, get to dip into different worlds, different characters, different mentalities of humans, and, you know, that was what it really interests me.
Almost like a puzzle to crack, maybe, from a more academic level.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, I got stuck, when I was younger, I got stuck in a corset and was doing lots of sort of Charles Dickens, Jane Austen stuff, constantly in a corset for about 10 years. And then, you know, really liked the idea of going to work in jeans and a t-shirt, because that's just never happened. I always associated work with high heels, very painful shoes and very painful costumes. And then when you start to get modern roles, and you can, you know, sometimes you can go to work like this and it's just joyous.
Yeah. I imagine the costume work for Underworld was slightly uncomfortable, however.
I think Kate's costume was more difficult to get into. I know she had to use a lot of talcum powder to get into that. Mine wasn't. I had a pair of leather trousers. Yeah, mine wasn't too bad.
How did you feel in the transition going from sort of UK production side of things to the US? Is there much difference behind the camera, how it all works?
Not really, and also like within television and feature films, the only difference really is the size of the screen that the audience end up seeing it on. I don't approach my work in television in any different way than I would approach it in film. So, yeah.
And one of the, another major role that you had very early on in your career was in the early 2000s, they did a reboot / live action version of Thunderbirds, and you got to play Lady Penelope.
I did.
Now, were you aware of Thunderbirds?
Yeah, because I'm British, so I knew that, and how is it? It's been going for 60 years or something. So I remembered the puppet show. And then I remember when we got offered the job, myself and one who plays Parker, we sat down and we just decided we'll watch a few clips of them to kind of get a gauge on what it was like. And then it was important for both of us, I think, because that was filmed in the 60s, and you had, Sylvia Anderson, who did the original Lady Penelope voice. It was very of the time. It was the International Rescue, and she was very different kind of posh than we have now. And so I wanted to kind of, make her upper class without being too much of a, impossible to go a bit too far, but to make her accessible to the audience that we were presenting her to, so that she just sounded like, a posh person in 2002 rather than, some weird 60s accent from back in the day.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that was Jonathan Frakes who directed that, wasn't it? Of Star Trek fame. Yeah. How was it like working with him?
Oh, he was amazing. I didn't ever watch Star Trek. I've never seen Star Trek, and I've never seen Star Wars. Please don't judge me. Science fiction has never really been my thing as a viewer, but I seem to have ended up with a lot of it. Jonathan was one of the funniest people I've ever met. So kind, just it goes down in the history books of my career as one of the most wonderful times of my life doing that film.
And in terms of that particular movie, I feel like there was an awful lot of it where it was a case of trying to pass on Thunderbirds to a new generation of fans. Was that always the intention?
Absolutely, and the thing is, we got, I don't know if you all remember, but the film was slated by the UK press because I think a lot of the journalists, perhaps who were viewing it, were people of the time who remembered the original puppet show. And back in the day, the puppet show was more for adults than kids in a way, wasn't it? And I think they were so grossly disappointed that we always set out to make a children's film, and I don't think the die-hard fans understood that. But if you show that film to any, back in the day, to any sort of, 8 to 10-year-old, they had it on a loop. I mean, the number of people now coming up to me, at 20, to say to me, oh my gosh, that was the film of my childhood. It's wonderful, and that means we did our job right. Yes, it didn't make a bazillion pounds, but who cares? It's not always about money, is it?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the great things about legacy and staying power. We'll talk a little bit about the live-action movie franchise, like you were part of in a second. But I think what we see now, and I see this looking out in the audience, I see so many young faces compared to maybe 5 or 10 years ago who have grown up on the live-action movies, and to them, that is their defining Transformers. So I think what you're saying there about Thunderbirds is entirely right. There's an entire generation of people now for whom your Lady Penelope is the definitive Lady Penelope.
It's really weird because at the time nobody came up and said, oh my god, we love the film. And we all, it's really sad, like everyone who made it, we were so disappointed because we poured our heart and soul into it. And the kind of common consensus really with the press was that it was just absolutely shit. And it wasn't, because I guarantee if you put a room full of 6 to 10-year-olds in here, they will then watch it on a loop track over. My son, he's 10. I think I first showed it to him when he was 6. But obviously, because he knows it's not completely real, he doesn't have to get too scared, because obviously Mum is in it. but he would have it on, I mean, every day for about 6 months, you know.
How was that for you? Watching it on the loop for 6 months?
Well, I didn't sit and watch it with him for 6 months, but no, it's thrilling. It's just wonderful to see that, you know, I think it's really special, you know, to... So, for example, The Goonies was my favourite film growing up, which is a kids' film for children. And, you know, the childhood films that we all watch and love, like those films that you see in childhood and you fall in love with, like they always hold such a special place in your heart. And the fact that I've been able to be part of one of those and know that, you know, little kids got so much pleasure from it in their childhood, like, you know, jobs are good.
Well, I've got to ask the question, who's your favourite Goonie?
Who's my favourite what?
Goonie.
Shot.
My favourite Goonie?
Yeah.
Well, I do have a lot of love for Sloth, I have to say.
Oh, yeah. Bless. Does anybody, like, we've got all the young faces. Has anybody not seen Goonies in here?
Shame.
Go do yourselves a favour, go see Goonies, it's great.
How old are you, the people that haven't seen it?
25, so, oh god, that's 2000. Oh, I'm so old. Yeah, go. Mind you, having said that, we only went to the cinema a few months ago to see, and it was maybe the 40th anniversary or something like that. Yeah.
Goonies, I'm trying to think what were yours, The Never-Ending Story?
Oh, that terrified me as a kid. Terrified me, yeah. That and Ghostbusters.
Flight of the Navigation?
Yeah.
Again, one that I was just weirded out by. The notion of knocking on your own front door and a stranger living there, it still terrifies me to this day. Yeah. Yeah. I just like watching giant robots shoot each other. Yeah, very simple and straightforward. Except when Optimus Prime dies and I cried as a kid. But never mind. Yeah. So, you do Thunderbirds. You've talked about it in the world as well. I would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about, and I'm a bit worried here because you said sci-fi's not your thing, but there's this little UK show called Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And you were in one of the most memorable episodes of the David Tennant era.
No, the most memorable episode of all time. It's in the
I
top
do apologise, yes, let me correct myself.
Top 5 of all time, and there's been how many? That's 600?
Oh, yeah, I'm no Whovian, I'm sure there's better people out in the audience who'd be able to tell me that. How did that come about? Again, just another audition agent? Or?
No, so what had happened was, you all know who Stephen Moffat is? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So Stephen Moffat had a 8-year-old son, I think, at the time, and he took his son to see Thunderbirds. And when Stephen was watching it, I think he was, in his mind, he was trying to percolate like an idea for the next episode he had to write. Saw me, and then he decided when he wrote the episode, he said, she needs to play Madame Pompadour.
Wow.
So it's got Lady Penelope to thank for the Doctor Who thing.
For the greatest Doctor Who episode of all time. So again, with sci-fi not being your forte, did you, I mean, it's a British institution, but did you have any concept of what was going on with the revival of Doctor Who at the time and things like that?
Yeah, I did, because I remember it had been gone for years and years, because I used to, you know, it was on when I was behind the sofa when the Daleks were on when I was a kid. And then I remember hearing it was brought back, Billy and Eccleston, and I don't think I watched it. But when I got a direct offer to say, oh, come and do this, and the script was so good, and when I knew that this particular character was going to, like, come in and break kind of the rules. I mean, apparently the Doctor had never kissed anyone, and it was like, so it was quite, you know, quite fun. Yeah, I just, you know.
Yeah. And when you get a script like that, obviously it's a TV episode, but as you say, it's a wonderful script and a wonderful episode. Do you get access to the script before before you sign on and agree to do it, you know exactly what you're doing?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're not going in blind, you're just not accepting it?
I'm not going in blind, but I have to say, whenever I'm reading something that's science fiction or, you know, the Transformers, like, because I don't know a lot about the sort of background of mythology and everything, it didn't make entire sense to me, but I thought, well, if I just show up and I know the lines, then it should be all right.
And what was it like walking onto that set, you know, at that time, which I think a lot of people would say is sort of the golden age of Doctor Who. David Tennant's era is regarded as perhaps one of the best of all time, especially among new fans. What's it like, first of all, walking onto an established set with established chemistry among the team, you coming in as a one-off, and what was the atmosphere like for you there?
Well, it's definitely one of those things where you feel like you're joining a school maybe a year late after everyone's already like gone through the first year and they've all made their friendship groups. And of course, I don't think they've done a historical episode by then, so they're all in normal clothes, and I've got to waltz. I mean, you've seen the dress, you know, walking around in this period costume, and really a bit embarrassed. But they all took me under their wing, and they were so nice.
Fantastic. Right. Shall we talk about Age of Extinction?
You can.
Yeah, okay, good. How did that come about? Tell me a little bit about what led up to you getting the role in Transformers.
Right, so these days in the acting industry it's all changed. So back in the day when I started at 15, if you had a meeting, or your agent would have sent you a script, and you go up to London, you meet the director and the producer, and you go in with your script and you do a little reading for them. And if they said, oh, that was interesting, but could you try it a different way, please? Yes, of course. Now, there are no in-person meetings, because ever since COVID, they've figured it out that we can just we're asked to put ourselves on self-tape at home. So with no other actors, you've got to get your boyfriend to read it in or one of your mates. And you're trying to really, you've been given no notes really about the character, so you're only going off your own interpretation. You know, you're sat there with a camera in your face and you're trying to do the best you can. It's like acting into the cosmos, really, you know. I mean, it's... and I must have at that point done about 250 self-tapes and not got any jobs. And I said to my US agent who'd sent over the script, I said, okay, look, I said, I will do this, there's not a chance in hell I'm going to get Transformers. They cast supermodels and, you know, it's just not me. And they sent me this weird paragraph about, like, it's the opening paragraph, I think, in the movie where I'm talking about the Chicxulub asteroid, whatever that is. You know, I didn't know what I was saying, but I thought, you know what, just get it done. And then 2 days later, I got a call from my agent saying Michael wants to hire you. Michael Bay. I was like, oh God, amazing. Wow. But then 2 days later, I got a call from my agent again saying, Michael says you're too fat and he's going to fire you. Right? And I was probably about my own, yeah?
Boo!
Please tell me that's a joke.
No, wait, it gets better.
Michael Bay. Language. That wasn't me. I don't know who it was. Language.
So anyway, I thought, well, I'm not going to lose this job. Because in America, when you worked out in Hollywood, you know, I hope it's changed now, but back in my day, we were all constantly getting the fat call, you know, got to lose weight, and it was all about being skinny and ridiculous. And now, luckily, it's all about having much more voluptuous figure and things, and big bums, which is fine. But I thought, well, I'm not going to lose this job. So I think I literally drank only water for a week. Then I don't recommend that to anyone, but so then I get to the set, and after about 2 weeks of filming, the producer knocks on my door at lunchtime, and that's never a good sign if a producer needs to speak to you in the lunch break. opened the door, and he said, "Come on, can I come in?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." He said, "No, listen, I'm going to say this with love. Michael says you're too thin." I said, "What's next? Is Michael going to think my eyes are too blue?" So, you know, I think what it did teach me, though, is that it's never about weight, actually. It's all about control. And it's about trying to make you feel insecure and not enough, so that you always feel maybe subordinate to the power they have. But, you know, I was younger then. I would never put up with all that now.
Do you feel, did at any point Michael address this to you directly, or is this
No, that's the thing. He likes to send other people to do his...
So this was definitely a Michael decision?
Oh, yeah.
So it's not the best start in the world, then, for a movie?
Not necessarily, but equally I have to say, like, I'm really grateful for him, because having got through that experience, I feel like nothing anyone could ever say to me could touch me now. He's given me the gift of strength.
Yeah.
So
from every cloud, silver lining and all of that, yeah. But what was it like then? Obviously, I appreciate that is a deeply personal thing, and thank you obviously for sharing that.
If you don't mind, don't write to Michael or anything and say, "Sophia said this."
But my question would then be, what's it like working on a movie of that scale and that magnitude?
It's sheer size of it. So I'm trying to explain this now. On a regular set, say they might give you a whole street to film in, and they'll block off the end. They'll block off the end of the street that way, and they'll block off the end of the street that way. But we went to Detroit, and they had bought up about 6 or 7 blocks of the city. So we could film, you know, you could film 360 degrees looking everywhere, and it was all set. So it's a scale of it.
Yeah. And you talked right at the beginning of this, when you first stepped onto a movie set, you felt like you were accepted, you were welcomed and things like that. Now obviously we've just talked about the criticisms that were levied. When you get to that sort of scale, is that feeling even remotely a possibility?
What do you mean?
So when the scale of the production balloons to the size it does, is that family and that familiar sense of being on set with other actors and stuff, does that still exist at that size?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, actors are always, they're my favourite people. I mean, they're all batshit crazy, but in the most wonderful way. And they're my tribe. So I love being with actors. Like I've always, because they've got great stories and they're charismatic, and I mean, it's just funny hanging around with actors. I just love it.
Yeah. And so your character in Age of Extinction is, you start the movie off, well, I suppose I'll ask this first of all. Is the movie that we saw on screen indicative of the script that you got?
The script kept changing all the time.
It feels like 2 movies jammed together.
Yeah, and I would get sent pages with new dialogue saying all kinds of things, and then it would not happen, that would not be shot, so it was always a bit, you sort of just have to work with what you're given, but yes, it does all change. And
was that just towards the end? Well, obviously I don't know what order you shot it in, but obviously you have the end of the movie based in Shanghai, where it's something. There's a lot of action, there's a lot of Transformers in there. But was that happening then, or was that just happening throughout the course of filming? That you would just get new pages all of the time and it was constantly in flux?
Yeah, I mean, the main story would stay through, but there'd be different bits of dialogue would be added to scenes, but then taken away again, and I don't know.
So you think, in terms of what you recorded and things like that, there's a very different version of your role in the movie out there?
Well, there's definitely a lot more that I shot that didn't end up in the thing, but they're so long, aren't they, these films?
It's about 3 hours, give or take, yeah. The other question that I've got in regards to it, and we'll open it up to questions from the audience shortly. Your character's exit in that movie doesn't make a great deal of sense.
No.
So, was that how it was originally in the script, or was that just, again, a later addition? Because, for context, if people don't remember, if you haven't seen it in a while, your character is with the rest of the human contingent pretty much for 2/3 of the final act. And then, all of a sudden, bye?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe... Maybe ask Michael after.
Sure, I'll drop him an intro. I promise we won't talk about what we said earlier. So there was potentially then a different ending for your character?
Well, I think initially they were going to... I think the hope was that she was going to become Wahlberg's... Wahlberg, we're going to get a bit jiggy, but that didn't happen.
Okay. And how was Mark?
Yeah, he was lovely.
Yeah?
Is
it true that he orders his own burgers into set?
I never got one.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't think they started the company then.
Oh, had they not? Okay. Incidentally, when we travelled to the States, that was deliberately the first
But
place.
he was very nice, very generous, and gave me lots of free pairs of trainers, which I've never forgotten.
Excellent!
He gets sent. The problem is, when you get really famous and really rich, like Mark, they then end up sending free shit to you. Like, when you can finally afford to buy the stuff that you like, you don't have to pay for it, they just give it to you all.
And that's how the system works, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you're wandering around set all day, and Mark Wahlberg hands you a pair of trainers.
It wasn't just a pair. He came with a box.
A box of trainers?
Well, he'll get sent, because, people want to see their shoes on him, because he's famous, and other people look up to him and say, oh, if Mark's wearing them, I'm going to go with those. And so he'd obviously got sent some women's trainers as well.
Okay. Didn't think much of wearing them, I guess.
No, so he just gave me all the girly ones. Yeah.
Is that just a simple, oh, thanks, Mark, and go about your day, or...?
No, I mean, nobody had ever done that for me before,
Yes.
Given me 3 things.
I suppose it's not a common occurrence, is it? Walking down the street, A-list celebrity just hands you a bunch of trainers. But interesting. We've got a hand up straight away down here. Just in the second row there.
Hello. First off, loved you in Age of Extinction.
Thank you.
My dad took me to see it in the cinema, so yes, I did grow up with the Michael Bay Transformers. The one question on my mind is, what was your favourite part of the movie where they shot? Because at the beginning of Age of Extinction, there's obviously a scene where you find Grimlock in the Arctic, but I think it's a dinosaur that's covered in asteroid stuff, but it's not really in memories, is it?
I didn't go to see the Dinobots, did I?
There's a scene at the beginning of the film where there's a fossil of a dinosaur and it's in the Arctic. So I'm just wondering basically, the question is, what was your favourite scene shooting in terms of acting and stuff? I worded that very poorly, I apologise.
So I suppose, what was your favourite scene to shoot in the movie?
Well, that first day we shot all of that, the beginning bit that you were talking about on the first day, and then I just enjoyed anything with Stanley Tucci, just because he's so good.
Just bouncing off of that scene where you've got the giant metal dinosaur. There isn't a giant metal dinosaur
In the Arctic.
Yeah, there is on the film, but I'm sure when you were there wasn't one. How does it feel to be directed to react to something that is clearly not there?
I just don't think they did have something there.
Oh, was it an actual?
It might have been going in, I don't know, but I mean, I told you about the tennis balls on the sticks, haven't I?
I've heard the story before, but for the
Yeah,
audience.
so whenever the Dinobots or any of the robots we have to interact with them, they'll grab one of the electricians who gets a kind of broomstick and then sticks a tennis ball on the end of it and holding it high. So we're having to sort of just be frightened of whoever's who's supposed to be Optimus or whatever and talk to this tennis ball. So you just have to use your imagination.
So every time you watch Wimbledon, you just get flashbacks. I think we've got a question over here. Yeah?
This is sort of a two-part question. The first question is, how familiar were you with Transformers before Age of Extinction? And another question, apparently one of your earliest roles, I think, was in the movie Guest House Paradiso. I just want to ask, what were Rick Mayall and Adrian Edmondson like? I'm a big fan.
What was the first question?
What was your experience of Transformers before getting the role?
My only experience of Transformers before getting involved was that myself and my younger brother Oliver, when we were kids, every Saturday morning there was a cartoon. Do you remember? Transformers, robots.
Yeah.
So that's what I knew about it. And the next one was
Guest House Paradiso. What was it like working with Rick Mayall and Adrian Edmonds?
Rick Mayall is one of my comedy. I adored him since I was, tiny. And so when I'd done my first job when I was 15, I decided I wanted to get an agent. And I went to meet this one woman, and I was asking her, I said, whose else is in your client list? And she sort of rattled off a few names, and then said, and Rick Mayall. And I thought, well, you're the agent for me. And and then I guess because I'd met him through her, and then the movie came up, and I was always a huge fan of the young ones and Bottom. I mean, I just adored those guys. So it was impossible to say no. And it was so much fun. And I had this ridiculous line, I don't know if you remember it. So basically, Rick Mayall's character passes out in this sort of weird dream, and he's sort of slightly unconscious, and then all these, there's about 6 of us younger, we were all 19 at the time, but they dressed us all in like Marilyn Monroe with the white dresses, and we sort of come over to him, and he's lying down on his sort of almost deathbed, and then we're trying to revive him, and I say to them, they're called love nymphs, I said, come love nymphs, out of respect for Richie, let us all get out our great knockers and wobble them about a bit. And then, and it just got more and more raucous, and then Aid Edmondson came in and started throwing beer all over his face and woke him up from the dream. And it was funny.
Got a question down here?
I'm going to cheat a bit, so there's 2 questions. First, can you tell us about the show Moonlight? I remember you on Moonlight. And the time was Spooks.
Spooks, but Moonlight you watched, yeah?
Yes.
Now that's a really good one, actually. It's a series, I did a television show in America that Joel Silver produced. He's the guy that produced The Matrix and Lethal Weapon and stuff. And it was a TV show which, the only way to describe it, it was like a Twilight for grown-ups. So the premise is vampires are existing in Los Angeles. I play a journalist, and then I fall in love with a vampire, but obviously it's then about that whole, he's obviously never going to age, I'm going to age, how would there be any future in it? But it's just, it's great, it's good, It's a good series. It's got a cult following, so I think you might enjoy it if anyone hasn't seen it.
And the other one was Spooks.
You wanted the Spooks.
Spooks. Yeah. Spooks is one of the only jobs that I found, what's the word? So I found it creatively fulfilling as an actor simply because there's not much acting required, in the sense that when you're playing a spy, trying to track down the bad guys or let your team know where the bad guys are, all your dialogue really is just to inform the audience where the bad guys are. So it's sort of, Alpha 2, do you copy? They're coming in from the west, they're up on the 15th floor, get up there now, send everyone up. But you don't get to know the souls and the people behind those people doing that kind of job, if that makes any sense. But that was still good.
There's a question down here. Hi.
Yeah, sorry. So one film you were in way back was a film called Outlander with Ron Perlman and Ian Hurt.
John Hurt.
John Hurt, sorry, I'm terrible with names. That was kind of a mixture of sci-fi and fantasy. What was it like to work on a film like that?
That was amazing. I remember kind of manifesting that job a bit, because I'd done sort of straight, romantic stories, love stories, and all that other stuff, and I thought the one thing I've not done is play a really kind of kick-ass Viking princess or something. I want to do something physical, I want to use a sword, I want to be a fighter. And then this movie came about, and it's a real shame that more people haven't seen it, because it's actually really good, especially boys and men. I think it's set in Viking times in Norway, and an alien ship crash lands onto planet Earth, bringing with it Jim Caviezel, the actor who played Jesus in Passion of the Christ, and also this terrifying animal, like a dragon, it's called a Morwen, is on board. And the Morwen is basically going to try and overthrow and just kill all of the Viking people and stuff. But it's a good one. If you like a bit of history and sci-fi mixed together, then you would enjoy it. And we've got John Hurt plays my dad, Ron Perlman's in it, Jack Houston. Yeah, it's a good one.
Bearing in mind the names that you've just mentioned there, especially John Hurt, the legendary John Hurt, who's your favourite actor that you've worked with?
I can't just do one, I can have to give you a few. If that's
Well, if you've got a Mount Rushmore, I'm happy.
Stanley Tucci, Alex O'Loughlin, who was in the TV series I did in America, Dawn French, Celia Imrie, I love. Oh, there's so many.
I suppose it is impossible.
Johnny Depp. There's always somebody that I love on each job,
Yeah. I think we've got a... Oh, sorry, question over here.
Hi,
Yeah. You're on?
yeah, well, you mentioned Thunderbirds. I was one of those kids who watched as a kid, and I was just wondering if they ever did a new addition to that movie, whether it was a live action sequel or an animated sequel, would you be up for returning as Lady Penelope?
A returning of what? Thunderbirds?
Yeah, as Lady Penelope.
Would you like to reprise your role as Lady Penelope?
Oh my goodness, in a heartbeat. I was gutted. We were supposed to have a 3-picture deal with that film, and then it, never happened. But yeah, it was so much fun playing her.
Right, I think we've got time for one more question, and it's just down here.
Hiya, my question to you, Sophia, is, it's unlikely, but it's worth a shot. Did you go to any of the premiere events for Age of Extinction? And if so, did you meet anyone who you didn't meet on set? Like, did you meet, by any chance, any of the voice actors from the film, or not?
From Age of Extinction?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I didn't.
So
Thank you.
when you were obviously shooting the film and stuff, when that film comes out, did you have a sense of sort of what it was going to look like compared to, you know, the final?
Ish. I mean, Michael would sometimes let us see little bits as we were going, but no.
But
and I'd not seen any of the other ones, so I didn't really...
Yeah. Weren't inspired to become a Transformers fan after interacting with Mr. B. Well, listen, it's been wonderful having you on stage. Thank you so, so much. You'll be obviously... Give her a round of applause. Sophia will be in the final room if you want to get anything signed and say hello on a one-to-one level, but otherwise, thank you so much. And go on, give her another round of applause.